Italy, a young nation unified only in 1861, entered the 20th century with a hunger for recognition and expansion. Still finding its footing among the great powers of Europe, Italy craved the territorial gains and international prestige that came with their status. World War I presented both an opportunity and a terrible risk. The conflict erupting across Europe offered Italy a chance to seize the territories it desired. These lands, held by the crumbling Austro-Hungarian Empire, promised to solidify Italy's position on the world stage. In 1915, Italy's ambitions were given form in the shadowy pact known as the Treaty of London. Signed in secret with Britain, France and Russia, this treaty outlined Italy's reward for joining the Allied cause. The agreement promised Italy the South Tyrol, Trieste, Istria and parts of Dalmatia territories, with significant Italian populations that had long been coveted by Rome. These promises fueled Italy's war effort, driving hundreds of thousands of young men into the bloody battles of the Alps. Across the Atlantic, a different vision for the post-war world was taking shape. US President Woodrow Wilson, entering the conflict late, championed a peace based on self-determination and open diplomacy. His 14 points, a blueprint for lasting peace, emphasized the rights of all people to choose their own destinies. This idealistic vision, while inspiring to many, stood in stark contrast to the secret deals and territorial ambitions that had characterized pre-war Europe. The clash between Wilsonian idealism and realpolitik would have profound consequences for Italy's future. The Paris Peace Conference of 1919, convened to redraw the map of Europe after the devastation of war, became a crucible for Italy's hopes and frustrations. Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando, arriving in Paris with high expectations, found himself increasingly sidelined by the Big Three: Wilson, British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, and French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau. Italy's wartime sacrifices, argued Orlando, merited the full realization of the Treaty of London's promises. However, Wilson's insistence on self-determination, particularly in regards to the multi-ethnic region of Dalmatia, threw Italy's territorial aspirations into question. The Treaty of Versailles, the final product of the Paris Peace Conference, dealt a crushing blow to Italy's ambitions. While granted South Tyrol and Trieste, Italy was denied most of Dalmatia and the strategically important port of Fiume. Orlando, furious and humiliated, left the conference before the treaty's signing. Italy emerged from the war victorious but deeply disillusioned. The promised mutilated victory, as it came to be known, left the nation feeling betrayed by its allies and robbed of its rightful spoils. Section 6. The rise of Il Duce: discontent breeds a dictator. The seeds of discontent sown in Paris quickly took root in Italy's fertile ground of economic hardship and political instability. The Treaty of Versailles, which ended World War I, left many Italians feeling betrayed and humiliated. Promises made to Italy by the Allies were not fully honored, leading to a sense of national disillusionment. The war had ravaged Italy's economy, leaving the nation deeply in debt and plagued by unemployment. Factories were closed, and returning soldiers found themselves without jobs. The agricultural sector was also in disarray, with many rural families struggling to survive. Social unrest, fueled by the perceived injustices of the peace settlement, gripped the nation. Strikes and protests became common as workers demanded better conditions and pay. The political landscape was fragmented, with numerous parties vying for power but failing to provide stability. It was in this climate of frustration and disillusionment that Benito Mussolini, a charismatic former journalist and fervent nationalist, rose to prominence. Mussolini, who had initially been a socialist, shifted his ideology towards nationalism and founded the Fascist Party in 1919. His fiery speeches and promises of a strong, unified Italy resonated with many who felt abandoned by the current political system. Exploiting the widespread anger and disillusionment, Mussolini and his fascist movement promised to restore Italy's lost glory and forge a new Roman Empire. He used propaganda effectively, portraying himself as the savior of Italy. Mussolini's black shirts, his paramilitary supporters, intimidated and violently suppressed opposition, paving the way for his rise to power. By 1922, Mussolini had become the Prime Minister of Italy, marking the beginning of a dark chapter in Italian history. Section 7. A legacy of resentment, Italy's path to World War II. Mussolini's rise to power in 1922 marked a turning point in Italian history. His ascent was not just a political shift, but a cultural and social upheaval that would redefine Italy's role on the global stage. Mussolini, with his charismatic oratory and iron-fisted policies, promised to restore Italy to its former glory, a promise that resonated deeply with a population disillusioned by the aftermath of World War I. His aggressive foreign policy, aimed at revising the perceived injustices of the Treaty of Versailles, would have devastating consequences for Italy and the world. The treaty, which ended World War I, had left Italy feeling shortchanged and humiliated as the promises made to them by the Allies were not fully honored. Mussolini capitalized on this national sentiment, using it to justify his expansionist agenda. The stab in the back myth, propagated by Mussolini and his allies, blamed Italy's post-war woes on weak politicians and treacherous allies who had denied the nation its rightful place in the sun. This myth was a powerful tool in Mussolini's arsenal, allowing him to rally the Italian people around a common enemy and distract them from the internal issues plaguing the country. This narrative of resentment and victimhood, deeply ingrained in the national psyche, fueled Italy's expansionist ambitions and ultimately paved the path towards World War II. Mussolini's vision of a new Roman Empire led to aggressive military campaigns in Africa and the Balkans, further straining international relations. The Italian populace, driven by a mix of national pride and economic desperation, largely supported these endeavors, unaware of the catastrophic consequences that lay ahead. As Italy marched towards war, the seeds of destruction were sown, leading to a conflict that would engulf the entire world and reshape the course of history. Section 8. The price of unfulfilled promises, a broader perspective. Italy's experience after World War I serves as a potent reminder of the enduring impact of unfulfilled promises and the dangers of nationalist fervor. The failure to address Italy's legitimate grievances, coupled with the harsh realities of the Versailles settlement, created a breeding ground for extremism and instability. This, in turn, contributed to the wider crisis that engulfed Europe in the decades that followed. The Treaty of Versailles, rather than ushering in an era of lasting peace, sowed the seeds of future conflict. Section 9. Conclusion. The enduring echoes of a broken treaty. The story of Italy's mutilated victory is a cautionary tale about the complexities of international relations, where promises made in the heat of war often unravel in the cold light of peace. Italy entered World War I with the hope of gaining significant territorial rewards, but the Treaty of Versailles left many of these ambitions unfulfilled. This sense of betrayal fueled nationalist sentiments and political unrest within Italy, setting the stage for future conflicts. The enduring power of national myths, such as the idea of a mutilated victory, can shape a nation's identity and influence its political landscape for generations. These myths often simplify complex historical realities, creating a narrative that can be easily exploited by those seeking to gain or maintain power. The often unforeseen consequences of war and peacemaking are starkly evident in the aftermath of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles aimed to create a lasting peace, but instead sowed the seeds of future conflicts. The harsh terms imposed on the defeated nations, particularly Germany, created a climate of resentment and economic hardship that would later contribute to the rise of totalitarian regimes. It highlights the dangers of broken promises, where the failure to deliver on wartime pledges can lead to widespread disillusionment and unrest. In Italy, the perceived betrayal by the Allied powers led to a surge in nationalist fervor and the eventual rise of fascism under Benito Mussolini. The seductive allure of nationalist rhetoric, promising to restore lost glory and rectify historical wrongs, can be incredibly powerful. This rhetoric often simplifies complex issues and offers seemingly straightforward solutions, appealing to those who feel marginalized or betrayed. The fragile nature of peace in a world riven by competing interests and ideologies is a lesson that remains relevant today. The post-WW1 period was marked by a series of diplomatic efforts to maintain stability. But these were often undermined by conflicting national interests and the rise of extremist ideologies. The echoes of Italy's unfulfilled ambitions continue to resonate today, serving as a stark reminder of the importance of understanding history's lessons. The commemorations and memorials that dot the Italian landscape are not just markers of past sacrifices, but also reminders of the complex interplay of promises, betrayals, and the enduring quest for national identity. Understanding these historical lessons is crucial for navigating the challenges of the present and the future. By reflecting on the past, we can better appreciate the complexities of international relations and the importance of diplomacy, cooperation, and the careful management of national aspirations.